All right, everyone, welcome back into another fantasy golf video. Going to be breaking down the Valero Texas Open. Going to do the video a little bit differently than I have over the past, few months here. We're just going to be breaking down the top 4 plays in each pricing tier, talking about which bets I would like for those golfers. Going to give you guys my core plays at the end still, and also still the first look build for myself, and then comparing that against what the 9 to 5 lineup builder is telling us is going to be the best approach. Just trying to make the video a little bit faster for you guys. And so with that, let's go ahead and jump into it. So just a quick recap from last week, guys. Looking at Mingwu Lee, he was a player that was rated out 7th overall in the model, which is fine. He was graded as a high exposure play as well with the 9 to 5 data tag, and he was a long shot outright bet only. So I don't know if you guys would consider 40 to 1 a long shot outright bet as well, but he was someone on the short list as possible bets that you could be on. So maybe, I know some people were able to hit him as an outright bet, which is pretty awesome there. I did not get to it. Typically speaking, I am betting on the top 7 golfers in the field. I reduced my betting card a little bit there, and really last week was not a good week. And I think, honestly, guys, I think I could write that off to a little bit of just a poor weather split, especially with some of the golfers I was on. So main build wise, I had never had this happen before, guys, and it was pretty similar to this lineup. I had one golfer make the cut, one golfer in my 8 years of doing this content and PGA DFS. I've never had my main build go worse than 3 out of 6, which has not happened all too often as well. So very crazy week. It's one of those things that I knew was going to happen eventually. It's due to happen, right? It's kind of crazy that it had happened, but kind of tilting. We had a couple of players miss the cut on the number, which would have changed the week. I will say the 9 to 5 data was a little bit better than I was. It did have JJ Spawn and Aaron Wright as high exposure plays, as well as Mingwu Lee. They were all kind of similar plays, I would say, where they weren't checking enough boxes to go out of our way to target them. Same thing with Rory. Like, there were slight hiccups with the plays. The only core play that we had last week was Sky Scheffler on paper. Had a decent amount of mid-exposure plays that did decently well as well. And just looking over last week really was like the perfect storm to come together to have a bad week for me personally. Really my worst one, I think, ever. Where if a couple of those players make the cut that were miscuts on the number, it turns out to be kind of just a typical normal week or push week. But that is kind of the name of the game, right? Now, looking at this week, I will say that on paper, it is a little bit of a more predictable week as well. So last week, we only had one core play. And this is honestly really refreshing data-wise, guys, is we have 3 core plays. And just looking through it, we have more plays that are more full, I guess, if that makes sense, where they're players that we are more comfortable clicking on. Like, for example, we have 3 core plays here. Tommy Fleetwood finished really well at this tournament last year, having a 7th place finish. Really good staff as well. Okay, 5th best staff in the field, best specialist in the field, best form in the field, 8 straight make cuts, top ranking player in the 9 to 5 model, and also overall. And the fact that you can get him at 14 to 1 is pretty awesome. I think he is a great outright bet as well. Certainly happy to get to him as an outright bet. Don't really get the odds for him. I get that he doesn't win, I guess I should say. I guess I do get the odds because he doesn't win, but he's just due to win. You have a player that's this good. Like, typically speaking, Tommy Fleetwood was just a solid play on paper. He was never like as good of a play as he has been like this year. So I think he is due to win, whether that's this week or maybe, call me crazy, maybe even next week at the Masters, if he does have another good week this week as well. So I think all things are pointing to him being just a stellar option. I could see if you didn't want to bet him to win, you could bet him to top 20, which he has been a top 20 machine. 16th, 14th, 11th, 5th, 22nd, 21st, and 16th. But really this year he's excelled. So I do like Tommy Fleetwood. He is the top play this weekend, and we should be treating him as such. From there, we go to Keegan Bradley. So Keegan Bradley as well gets 12 straight made cuts on the PGA Tour. I get why he's popping up as a core play. He's made 2 straight cuts at this event, finishing 8th and 23rd. And he is someone, 8th best staff in the field. And for what's worth, guys, the key stats that we're looking at for this week are going to be birdie to bogey ratio. And I think part of the reason as to why last week, and I think it's pretty obvious why last week wasn't as good as maybe obviously what I hoped, is it ended up playing much different than expected. And that's just simply due to, I think, the rain coming in, making the course play softer and much easier, which meant that birdie or better percentage ended up being the key stat. That tournament ended up playing as an easy scoring tournament rather than the hard scoring tournament. Okay, that rarely takes place where it's that different. So obviously, key stat wise, we should have been looking at birdie or better percentage last week as opposed to like some bogey avoidance stats as well. We did see driving distance play even more of a key factor. Okay, we thought driving distance would play a key factor, just not that much, and it really ended up being pretty significant. So that is something that you can't really control data wise when the weather comes in and makes the tournament play different. We actually saw it happen at the Cognizant Classic as well. Thankfully, this week we don't have that. So when we're looking at the key stats for this week, birdie to bogey ratio, which we know is basically the most key stat at this tournament, very crucial stat. Okay, birdie to bogey ratio pops up the most out of any other key stat. Then we're looking at par 4 scoring. Okay, that is another pretty darn key stat here. Okay, strokes gained approach as well, but also strokes gained tee to green. Now, typically speaking, we always are looking at strokes gained tee to green. But the reason why I'm pulling it in as like the 4th key stat, as just the normal general stats that we're looking at, as well as strokes gained total, is there really isn't any other stat that pops up. It really just depends on the course and really the setup for that year. Okay, sometimes it's wedge score and pops up for golfers that win and also make the cut. Sometimes it's 200 plus as well. So did want to call that out as well. But looking at it, guys, Keegan Bradley ranks out 8th in the field as a stat fit. Okay, so the worst stat fit that we have him is with birdie to bogey ratio, where it ranks out 26th in the field, which is not bad. We'll take that. So Keegan Bradley is a play that is looking pretty darn good on paper. And then from there, last year's winner of this event, last year's runner-up. He lost in a playoff last year to Akshay, which does draw something that I want to call out here, is that look at the golfers that have won. We've seen Corey Connors win twice. We've seen JJ Spawn win, Jordan Spieth win, and Akshay. So kind of similar-ish golfers, but also you can see why some of the key stats are a little bit different for each year just based off of who ends up winning it, right? You can kind of see that there. And I do want to call it, for what it's worth, guys, the winning score last year, -20 for both Akshay and Denny McCarthy. But if you look at the leaderboard from then on, those were 2 outlier scores compared to the rest of the tournament. Rory was -11, Henley -10, and so it did play more as a normal scoring event rather than a hard or easy scoring event. But getting back into Danny McCarthy, yes, last year's runner-up has tremendous course history. And if you look at that course history where it is ascending, guys, so he's finished 34th, 18th, and then 2nd last year, goes up again, he's going to win, right? He's also a pretty darn good stat fit. So the one concern is that strokes gained tee to green, 42nd in the field. We do worry about that, but then top 15 or better in the rest of the key stats. So birdie bogey ratio, strokes gained approach, and then par 4 scoring as well. All that bodes really well for him. He also has been in pretty darn good form. So he's made 12 straight cuts in a row. We look at the form, 14th, 18th, 48th, 5th, 16th, 58th, and 16th. So all pretty darn good stuff there from Denny McCarthy. Overall ranks out as the 4th best pick in the 9 to 5 mile. Those 3 players are clearly the top 3 kind of priority plays, I would say, given their price tags, especially for cash and also even GPPs. They're going to be stellar options. And then from there, we do need to talk about Corey Connors. Okay, Corey Connors is kind of priced up as well, but he is a former winner at this tournament, a 2-time winner at this tournament, won this event just 2 years ago, continued his really strong form at this tournament last year, finishing top 25. He also has been in tremendous form as well. So 8th, 6th, and 3rd. I mean, just tremendous stuff there from Corey Connors. Corey Connors was one of those players that really over last year was a very safe and reliable option. Didn't hold as much upside, typically speaking, week in and week out. He has shown that lately. And so I'm pretty comfortable getting to him as an outright bet as well. You can get him at 18-1 as well. So that sits pretty well for him as well. He has made 6 straight make cuts in a row on the PGA Tour as well. Pretty good stuff there from him. Top 10 staff in the field. So really, to me, he's basically checking all the boxes as well. I'm a little bit surprised that he's not popping up as a core play, but like last week, I don't want to doubt why the 9-to-5 data might not have someone as a core play. I did do that last week with Aaron Rye and turned to bite me, right? But yeah, Corey Connors, another stellar option that we have in that high tier. So I do think we want to prioritize getting to at least one of those golfers because they should be both safe, but also they should also hold some pretty darn good upside, which is not what we've been able to say really for the last month. Really, the board has been very tight, and the players that we were getting on those boards were all kind of more hit or miss. It was definitely more randomness just with how it seemed that week, and I think I did a decent job of kind of calling that out. So then, guys, we're going to drop down into the mid tier, and I want to talk about a player that is actually popping in as an outright bet, as a good outright bet on paper. And so again, what's going into that is just taking all the past characteristics of golfers and taking the 80th percentile of all those like key stats in terms of players that have won previously on the PGA Tour, both this year and previous years, and he pops in there. Okay, so there's 2 golfers. Tommy Fleetwood was actually the other one. JT Poston is the other one. And so you can get a good outright bet, on paper, right, at 55-1. That's pretty darn good. And so I really don't mind the odds of him. Now, he only has 1 start here over the past 3 years, a 31st place finish. We would like that to be a little bit better, but he's in the 9th best recent form in the field. Okay, not tremendous, okay, but not terrible as well. You can kind of see what the data is seeing there with that rank, where he has made 7 straight cuts on the PGA Tour, a couple of decent upside finishes, 16th and 12th, but that was kind of far removed there as well. So, good enough stuff, especially at the price tag. We'll take it. Stat fit wise, that's the concern, guys. 34th in the field. And what could be a concern is 61st in birdie to bogey ratio. That's very concerning. And also 72nd in par 4 scoring. So that could lead to him potentially just not having a good week. I think he's kind of more of a better outright bet than he is like a cash play in DFS, even though he has made 7 straight cuts and did make the cut at this tournament last year. That stat fit does have me slightly worried. And then another play that I decently like as well is going to be Bud Cauley, who has looked extremely good lately. Okay, so Bud Cauley finishing 4th and 6th at the Players Championship, did miss the cut at the Puerto Rico Open, which was probably one of the most tilting miscuts I think I've ever experienced at a tournament. Just him and Ryan Gerard just did not come through and have played really well since then. And it's tilting because that seems like the outlier when they should have. It was a tournament that they should have been peaking at just with the low caliber field. So kind of tilting there, but he is really looking like another good play here where good staff fit guys, 3rd best staff in the field. Okay. So really popping top 15 or better, top 20 or better in all the 4 key stats that we're looking at this week. So tremendous stuff there. Again, has pretty darn good form. You take out that miscut at the Puerto Rico Open, which maybe it had to do with travel. Maybe he got sick. The PGA Tour reporting is terrible. We know that, but tough to say for sure. But other than that, I mean, really good stuff there from Bud Cauley, and did finish top 40 at this event last year. So really good stuff there from him. I'm surprised at the price. I'm a little bit annoyed at the price, and I thought he was going to be a good long shot bet, and I think he was going to be a little bit cheaper. That kind of echoes just how good Vegas has gotten lately. Like, honestly, guys, when I started, which again was like 8 years ago, which obviously they're going to improve, but he probably would have been like 100 to 1, like 8 years ago, maybe even more than that. Heck, even like 2 years ago, he would have been at least 80 to 1. And so that certainly shows the improvement that sportsbooks have done and that, or have made, and also DraftKings with their pricing as well. Like last year, I think he probably would have been 7.8, at least on DraftKings. And then I'm kind of fine getting to Jacob Bridgman in this pricing tier. He did miss the cut for us on the number last week. That was very unfortunate. Again, I kind of write that off as, I wouldn't say that there was like a weather split, but I think also looking at it didn't help those golfers, because that certainly seems to be an outlier that all the golfers that miss a cut for me and a lot of people, some of the chalkier options were golfers that had that tee time split. Then Siwoo Kim's as well in this pricing tier, definitely comfortable game to him, even though he missed a cut, definitely a GPP only play. And then we go ahead and get into low tier guys, the 7K range, and we are seeing some pretty good options here as well. Now, they're not as full of plays. Okay, there are some concerns here, but there also is a lot of upside here as well. So we start with someone like Lee Hodges, who, I was on decently last week, guys. A little bit of a concern with him coming in off of an injury. I honestly wish I had not seen that blurb about his injury, because that would have shifted the week pretty dramatically for me, because had I just not known that information, I would have been on him much more, because on paper, he was popping as an extremely good play, just like he is this week as well. He is someone that does clearly seem to be, I would say, mispriced. Now, he is someone that did have a good Sunday round, finishing 11th there, but it's not too shocking. Like, he has 2 top 12 finishes over his past 4 starts, 8 straight make cuts now on the PGA Tour. You can get him at 75 to 1 as well. Those are pretty darn good odds for him. I think he's a solid outright bet, especially given the fact that he finished 6th at this event just 2 years ago. So pretty darn good stuff there from Lee Hodges. The one concern is that he's like a 31st in specialist rank. That's a little bit concerning, but a top 6 staff hit, okay? And the course history is spotty, like miscut, 6th and miscut. Definitely not a good cash play, but certainly someone we could look at in GPPs, and also someone outright wise we can get to as well. So Andrew Putnam is also someone that is slightly flawed as a play, but across the board, he's not terrible. So the recent form is the biggest concern. Ranks out 52nd in the field, but he's a top 10 specialist, 32nd in course history rank. So he's made 3 straight cuts at this tournament, which is obviously good, and they've all been better finishes as well. So miscut, and then 31st, 28th, and 14th. So all pretty good stuff there from Andrew Putnam, and he's decent staff hit. 24th in the field, overall ranking 28th in the model as a whole. So not a terrible option. Sam Ryder is someone that has made 9 straight cuts on the PGA Tour as well. He also is someone that has pretty terrible course history, but also a top 3 finish. So certainly just a GPP only play, but it wouldn't be too shocking to see him continue that good golf. Then the one play that to me seems the most mispriced this week is going to be Victor Perez. It's kind of tough to explain why he's this cheap. I know he's not the best specialist, ranking out 52nd in the field, but across the board, fine. He has a start at this tournament last year, 45th place finish. 4 straight made cuts, and guys, he's finished 18th, 22nd, and 18th, and he's 22nd best staff in the field. Like, really just a quality play. Like, I wonder, and let's show you guys that new tab. I was wondering if he was an outright bet at all. So we do see Lee Hodges is potentially a long shot bet. Okay, that's what the data tag is calling out to us. I'm kind of surprised Victor Perez is not. And we see kind of the data tag options for us, guys. Low exposure, mid exposure for Sam Ryder, interesting there, and then low exposure. Again, this is just taking past year's data, in terms of what golfers are typically successful, and then slapping a tag on that for how we should go about properly owning them. It's up to you guys to determine, weather and stuff like that, or the human elements. Did they make a caddy switch, or did they make an equipment switch? Obviously, that stuff's not going into the data, but always interesting to note that. And then just real quickly, talking about some values. I don't know if we necessarily need to get to this range this week, guys, but Henrik Norlander is an okay option. Just kind of a good enough play across the board. Is someone that I would expect to give us a chance at a mid cut. And then Stephen Fisk as well. You see the 70th place finish last week, so a missed cut on the number, 28th, 4th, 69. So I do think he's another golfer that gives us a decent chance at a mid cut as well. But that's the thing. The plays that are 7K and lower, they're kind of just all dart throws. And really what you're hoping for is like a made cut. There isn't anyone that really pops up as a great GPP option. I mean, sure, we could slap that. I could slap that onto them for like content. Oh, this guy's a great GPP high upside play, but I really just don't see it. I think all these golfers are somewhat risky, and I just don't know if we need to get there with some of the good 7K plays that we are getting. And so, yeah, guys, just kind of a short list of what I'd be looking at as core plays for this week. Tommy Fleetwood, Keegan Bradley, Denny McCarthy, and then, yes, Victor Perez. Just considering his price tag, he is someone that I want to prioritize going out of my way to target. Now, the issue is if we go with all these golfers, we're obviously not going to be able to make this lineup path work because, again, I really don't want to be dipping down into that 6K range, but let's try to maximize our potential upside with this lineup. So guys, this is kind of the path I'm trying to get to here, is like Keegan Bradley, Denny McCarthy, Bud Colley, Victor Perez, and then Lee Hodges, all players that I think are pretty darn good plays, especially considering their price tags. I don't think we're losing an edge by targeting those golfers. The issue then becomes, though, like, what do we do with that? Because to me, Sam Burns not exactly like a cash play or main build play, kind of a GPP play. Same thing with JT Poston. He's probably the player I would close this build out with, but it does have some risk there. And again, that's kind of the issue this week, is that I can make a lineup where I feel pretty good about getting at least 4 out of 6 across the cut line. But not exactly any lines where I'm like, yeah, that lineup is the go-to lineup. That's the lineup that I need to just enter in a lot because it has a high likelihood of getting 6 for 6 across the cut line. Now, if we take a peek at kind of the lineup here, guys, what we're going to see is, again, if you just move this over a couple decimal points, you could, or just one, this lineup basically has a 7% chance of getting 6 for 6 across the cut line, which is pretty darn good. Okay. Average salary remaining, $100. Average model rank, 13. So pretty darn good stuff across the board. Really good staff fit. That's what we're targeting there. Strokes gained total over the last 5, not the best, where it's 31st, but a decent build. But that's kind of the theme. And so with that, guys, we are just doing a run on the 9-5 lineup builder just to see kind of what the general themes are. Again, not changing anything, just taking a peek. So it does probably going more of the fair and balanced approach. Corey Connors, Danny McCarthy, Maverick McNeely, Sam Stevens, Lee Hodges, and Alex Smalley. So Alex Smalley is a golfer that did miss a cut last week as well. I think he's going to be a fine, or no. Yeah, he did miss a cut on the number. Fell apart on the second round there. But I think that's fine. I think that's a fine build. If we go over one, though, we're seeing a little bit different. Ben Griffin's getting in there then. So kind of on the same path of what I'm thinking. I would say this is more GPP kind of lineups, but I'm fine with those as well. But guys, that's going to do it for this video. Please give a like and subscribe to the channel. That does help out a lot. If you guys want access to any of the tools that you saw in this video, make sure to head on over to 9to5sports.com. Get access to all the fancy golf tools that you guys need to succeed for just $10 a month. Including that is also going to be PrizePicks and UNDERDOG prop tools for all the various sports. Obviously, MLB is going on right now. We have the PGA prop board as well. So take advantage of that, guys. That's going to be all. Thanks for watching. Good luck. And as always, let's keep cashing.